In section 12.2, we are going to talk about light and colors and how we see colors, how our eye deciphers it, and what it means when we actually see an object that has a specific color. So the first thing that you need to know is that when you see the color of an object, it's actually because of the wavelength of light that that object is reflecting, and that is what hits your eye. So you have colors that an object will absorb. We don't see those colors. The colors that we actually see is what that object is reflecting. So if you're looking at this leaf, you see that it's green. It's because it's reflecting green light. When you have white light, though, white light, it's because you have a blending of all of the colors in the visible spectrum. Black light is the opposite. If you see something as black, it's because it's absorbing all of the light in a spectrum. When you have white light that hits an apple, that reason that apple is red is because more of the red light is being reflected than any of the other lights like green or blue. Therefore, those get absorbed, and the light that gets mostly reflected is the red, and that's why we see the apple as red. Same thing with the green leaf. The reason we see that the leaf is green is because as the light comes in and strikes it, the leaf is actually reflecting more green colors than any of the other colors, and therefore we are able to see the color green. Now, visible light does not have the color black, right? So when we see black light, like I said before, it's because they absorb all of the light and barely reflect some, or if any at all, any light back into our eyes. When we see white light, though, they reflect all of the colors of visible light back into our eyes. So when you're looking at this image of black and white, you can kind of really distinguish, okay, black, all of the colors are being absorbed, white, all of the colors are being reflected. And that's how you differentiate between black and white. Now, it is so important that we see colors in everyday life because of, just for safety reasons. If you're not able to see colors and you're not able to see the change in colors, you can't see things such as traffic lights changing. You can't see such things like, what is the color of the traffic light? Is it red? Is it green? Is it yellow? Am I good to go? Do I have to stop? And so a lot of people who have mild color blindness usually get red and green mixed up. When they do, or even people who are colorblind completely, the good thing about traffic light is that all of them are going to have red at the top, yellow in the middle, and green at the bottom. So as long as they can see the color changing, they're usually good to go because they can see, oh, the top light is lit up, even though I can't see the color, then it's red. Oh, the bottom light is lit up, even though I can't see the color, it's green. And therefore, they can keep safe that way. Like when we talked about sound in a chapter before, we had to talk about the ear because the ear is heavily involved in how we perceive sound. So when we talk about light, we obviously have to talk about the eye. So let's talk about how the eye is involved in light. So the first thing is when you have light coming in, it's going to enter your eye through your lens, right? The lens is right in the front of your eye. There's also another part of your eye called the retina, which is on the back part of your eye. It's labeled here in the diagram. The retina, which is like that, yellow part of the eyeball that you see, that is what is absorbing the light that is coming in through the lens, and it's going to convert it into radiant energy. And when it converts it to radiant energy, it is then going to be converted to nerve impulses that get sent to our brain, and then our brain will decipher what image we are seeing. Now, let's talk about the retina specifically, because there's a couple components that the retina has that is super important for us to detect light and images. So the retina has two specific cells that are called light detecting cells. They have the rod cells and they have the cone cells. The rod cells are specific to dim light, so they're sensitive to dim light. So they actually help you see in the dark, kind of like night vision. Cone cells, on the other hand, they're sensitive to super bright light, so they help with daytime vision. So cone cells can actually detect different wavelengths of light as they come in. And they take these wavelengths of light and they send them as nerve impulses to your brain. Your brain will interpret it interpret the different wavelengths and kind of combine them or separate them as different colors, and are able to make up the image that we are able to then understand of what we are looking at or what we are seeing. Now, there are 3 types of cones, right? So remember, cones are the ones that are sensitive to bright light. There's actually millions of cones in just 1 millimeter of your eye. But there's 3 types of cones. There's red cones, green cones, and blue cones. Make sure you know the difference between these cones. The red cones are going to help you see red and yellow light, okay? Green cones are going to help you see yellow and green light. So you can kind of see that red and green overlap. Blue cones, on the other hand, they are going to help you see blue and violet light, okay? So those are the 3 types of cones, red, green, and blue, and they help you to see specific colors of light. Now, when we talk about color blindness, first of all, is anybody in class colorblind? If you are, raise your hand. No? I had someone last year who was colorblind, and they were not able to differentiate some of the colors that were in this image, which was pretty cool to kind of like talk through and show as an example. But the reason people are colorblind is because 1 or 2 of your cones, or more, it can be a group of them, aren't working correctly. Because remember, cones are the ones that you are sensitive to bright light. They're the ones that really give color, because that's what you need during the daytime. So if a couple of your cones are not working correctly, you can't distinguish between the colors. So if you have your red cones are not working correctly, you're not going to be able to distinguish between red and yellow light. If your blue cones are not working correctly, you're not going to be able to distinguish between blue and violet light. Color blindness is actually more common in men and women than women, but they can, still show up in women as well. Usually they get passed to men from the mom side. Now, there's something called filtering colors. So you can filter a color because of wearing glasses that have tinted glass, like the glass itself is tinted. So it will change the color of everything you see. So some people will have some glasses that are tinted more yellow. Therefore, when you wear them, you see things more yellow or golden than any of the other colors. If they're tinted blue, you're going to see things more blue, so on and so forth. So depending on the tint of your glasses, it will depend on what color you see other objects to be. Here you see Johnny Depp deep in thought, and he has almost like a purplish tinted glasses or rosy tinted glasses. So whatever he sees is going to have that same tint to them that when he receives them through his eyes. So when we talk about tinted, we have to talk about filter. So what is a filter? Filter is simply a transparent material that pretty much selects what light is being transmitted. So they transmit 1 or more colors of light, but they absorb the rest of the light. So if I have a blue filter and I place it over a whiteboard or a white piece of paper, it's going to be blue because the filter itself is tinted blue. That's what's being reflected. Here is an example of filtering colors. A lot of people, when they do photography, they use different filters to kind of create a more aesthetic look. You use this on social media, on Snapchat, Instagram. All of these have different color filters now, which are helpful. They make things look more beautiful. But we see filtering of colors in everything almost nowadays. So let's look at these pictures that we see below. In picture 1, you see a blue bowl. The reason the bowl is blue is because the light that is being reflected off the bowl is the color blue. All the other light is being absorbed by it. In picture 2, you have a blue filter that is covering the lens of, say, the camera, which causes the bowl and the surroundings of the bowl to look blue. And that's because the filter is transmitting the blue light that is being reflected off of the bowl as well. But then what's happening in picture 3? The picture 3, you have a red filter, but it's causing the bowl to look black because of the transmission between the red filter and the blue light that is being reflected off of the bowl itself. Because remember, the bowl is still blue. So when you add a red filter to it, the combination of these two colors that are being transmitted is causing the bowl to look black. Now, when we talk about colors, one of the cool things about colors is the ability to mix them, right? So if you have paint, you're able to mix the paint, you can produce different colors, and that is always a fun thing to do when you're being creative. When we talk about primary colors of light, we're talking about light, we're not talking about paint. There are 3 primary colors of light. There's red, green, and blue. And all of these are in reference to the colors of the types of cones that you have. Remember, we said we have 3 types of cones, red, green, and blue. Therefore, you have 3 primary types of light, which are also called red, green, and blue. If you mix these 3 colors of light, red, green, and blue, in equal amounts, they have to be exactly equal, you are actually going to produce white light. So you can look in the diagram, you can see how the red, green, and blue light, when they are in equal amounts mixed together, in the middle you have white light. So if you have unequal mixture of colors though, you are going to have distinct colors. So you can see that there's an unequal mixture of red and green, so it's producing some kind of yellow color, or red and blue creates this kind of like light pink purple. Green and blue produces a super light blue. So unequal amounts of color are going to produce different colors, but if you have equal amounts of these 3 colors, you are going to produce white when we're talking about light. When we talk about paint, though, it is a little bit different. So you can't have equal amounts of paint and get white like you do with light. So let's talk about what a pigment is first of all. When you say pigment, we are saying that it's a colored material that is used to change the color of other substances. So a pigment color is caused because of different wavelengths of light that the pigment actually reflects. So if you see something brown, it's because that brown light is being reflected. If you see something green, it's because green light is being reflected. Pigments can also be known as molecules that absorb specific wavelengths of light and reflect others. So a lot of times when we talk about, if you remember in science or biology, you talked about chlorophyll, which is a green pigment in leaves and plants. That's what makes a plant green. And it's because it's absorbing all the other light from the sun, but it's reflecting the green light. So what we see like in color is actually going to be the net effect of all light being reflected back at us. So whatever you see, if you look around the room, you see the blue walls, or if you see, a red marker, those are the light that's being reflected off of the object, not what is being absorbed. So when we talk about mixing pigments, like paint or color, not light, there are 3 primary pigments. So remember we talked about 3 primary colors of light being red, green, and blue. 3 primary pigments are magenta, cyan, and yellow. So magenta is made from equal amounts of red and blue light. Cyan is made from equal amounts of green and blue light. And then yellow is made up of equal amounts of red and green light. And you can mix all of these 3 and you can make any pigment you want. So if you look at your printer ink, right, you actually buy these 3 colors. You buy magenta, you buy cyan, and you buy yellow. You put those in your printer, and then you could also buy black ink. But for color printing, you only need magenta, cyan, and yellow, because the combinations that these 3 colors can make can actually make all of the colors on the spectrum, and you can create any kind of color image that you want, which is pretty cool. In order for one color to hit your eye, pigments have to absorb and reflect a bunch of range of different colors. So the color of a mix of two pigments is going to be determined by the primary colors of light they both give off. So for example, if you mix magenta and cyan, you would reflect blue because that is the primary light color they both give off. When you mix the three primary pigments, they absorb all of the primary colors of light, such as red, green, and blue, and they actually make black. So you can see that in the middle, that all of the combinations of them together make black. Remember, colors of light are additive because they make white, and pigments of light are subtractive because they make black. So make sure you know that. Also, when you have a white wall, it's reflecting all of the colors in equal amounts, therefore it's white. But if I shine a blue light on the wall, there is more blue light on the wall than the other light that you can see, so you see the separation of color. If you have a black wall, it's going to absorb all the colors, so it looks black. So even if I shine a blue light on it, it will still look dark. So let's answer a couple of these questions. Which type of cells in your eyes allows you to see the color violet? So remember, we talked about cones are the ones that see light. So which one allows you to see the color violet? If you said blue cones, letter C, you are absolutely right. Blue cones allow you to see blue and violet light. What do you see when you note the color of an object? So if I'm looking at a red apple, what am I seeing? Is the light being reflected, absorbed, refracted, or diffracted? When I look at a red apple, it's red because of the light that is being reflected. The red wavelength is being reflected. So letter A is the right answer. Last question. Which property of a material indicates how much light slows down when traveling in the material? This is called index of refraction. So this kind of goes back to 12.1. So it's letter B, index of refraction.